Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take those huge stacks of research, all that reading, and boil it down into something practical, something you can really use.
Exactly. Concentrated knowledge.
And today, our mission feels really fundamental. We're unpacking what truly drives, lasting influence and achievement, real stability.
Yeah.
Because we often get trapped in the tactics, don't we? The networking tricks, the marketing plans, the sort of superficial what and how of trying to succeed.
And focusing just there, it's inherently, unstable. You look at these amazing achievements, these influential people or companies, and naturally you try to copy their methods.
Right, you want the formula.
But what our sources today keep pointing to, and we're looking across philosophy, ancient history, modern business thinking, is that the mechanics are actually secondary.
Good.
The real deep dive today is into the foundation. It's this idea that sustained, real success, the kind that transforms things, it doesn't come from flashy techniques or quick fixes.
No shortcuts.
No. It comes from an internal, solid foundation of character and purpose. It's about establishing what some of our key sources call primary greatness.
Primary greatness, I like that. And what's striking is how this idea pops up everywhere, right? Our sources are pretty diverse today.
Incredibly diverse.
We've got classical political theory, some really rigorous Stoic philosophy, sharp insights from modern leadership analysis, 20th, 21st century stuff, and even advice from motivational thinkers.
And they all converge. Different fields, different eras.
But pointing to the same core truth. If you want to build something, a business, a career, maybe just a life that actually lasts, you absolutely have to start with your core belief, your internal why. Okay, let's unpack that core idea then. Greatness. It sounds like right off the bat, we need to draw a line between just, looking good on the surface and having real deep integrity.
That distinction is absolutely the bedrock. It's fundamental.
If you want to influence the world, you kind of have to get your own house in order first.
Exactly. And it's framed really clearly as the difference between primary greatness and secondary greatness.
Okay, break those down.
So secondary greatness, that's what everyone sees. It's the success, the money, the social status, the recognition, maybe being really charismatic. It's the outward stuff.
The shiny objects.
Pretty much. But primary greatness, that's character. That's the intrinsic goodness, the integrity, the strength of who you are when no one's watching.
So we're talking about choosing maybe the character ethic over the personality ethic. That sounds like Covey.
Precisely. That's a core concept. But here's the crucial question you might ask.
Yeah.
If charisma, good communication skills, being persuasive, all that secondary greatness stuff, if it works so well in the short term, why does focusing only on that inevitably lead to, things falling apart down the line?
Right. Why does it fail long term? Because sometimes it really seems to work in
It fails because, fundamentally, it's perceived as manipulation. Techniques are they're just tools for interacting. Without that primary greatness, without genuine, deep integrity underpinning them, those good human relations techniques, as Covey calls them, they get seen for exactly what they are.
Which is?
Superficial tricks to get what you want. If your character is flawed underneath, if there's duplicity, insincerity, a focus purely on self-interest people, they sense it. Eventually.
They get that gut feeling.
Absolutely. The source material is really explicit here. Techniques without integrity. They feel manipulative. And where there's no trust, there's simply no foundation for permanent success. You just can't sustain complex relationships, business or personal, if people suspect your core is fraudulent.
It sounds exhausting, too, having to constantly manage that perception because the inside doesn't match the outside. Like you're always putting on a show.
It's the ultimate time sink, as you say. It's a total energy drain.
Yeah.
And we can use an analogy here, maybe like true learning versus just faking it for a grade.
Okay, I like that.
Technique without the goodness underneath, it's like cramming for a final exam. You might pull it off, right? Get the short-term win, the good grade, the quick sale.
We've all done it.
But you haven't actually internalized the principles. You haven't achieved any real mastery. So when life throws inevitable challenges at you, stress, pressure, setbacks.
Which it always does.
Always. That lack of foundational character means the superficial techniques just crumble. Relationships erode. The short-term win collapses into long-term failure. Those techniques can only truly sustain growth if the character beneath them is sound.
And what's really fascinating is seeing this isn't just some modern self-help idea. Historically, this was apparently seen as key to, actual business success. You mentioned Russell Conwell.
Yes, Conwell's perspective is, frankly, startling today, almost radical in its simplicity.
What did he argue?
Well, Based on his observations of successful people in America back then, he made this bold claim. He said, 98 out of 100 of the rich men of America are honest.
98%. Hold on. That sounds, I mean, in today's world, that sounds incredibly naive, doesn't it? We're almost conditioned to think fortunes are built by, cutting corners or exploiting people.
It does sound naive on the surface, but Conwell's point wasn't just moralistic. He was arguing that honesty is the foundation of their success because it builds trust.
Okay. So how does that work practically?
Think about it from an efficiency standpoint. Every deal, every contract, every partnership involves risk, right?
Sure.
If the person you're dealing with is known for their primary greatness, for being honest, having integrity, think about how much friction that removes. The cost of verifying everything they say, the need for constant legal oversight, the fear of being cheated, it all drops dramatically.
So trust becomes like an economic lubricant.
Exactly. It's the lubricant of large-scale enterprise. If you are genuinely trusted, you attract the best opportunities, the best partners, the easiest transactions. Honesty, in this view, isn't just nice. It becomes a massive competitive advantage because it cuts costs and speeds things up.
So the most successful people aren't necessarily the sneakiest, but the ones who are most efficient at building and maintaining trust, which lets them operate bigger and faster.
That's the argument. It directly links the internal value system, the ethical why, to the external behavior, the how of doing business.
Makes sense.
And Conwell took it even further. He said that anyone who tries to separate their principles, he linked it to religion or ethics from their business dealings, is basically advertising themselves as, and this is his quote, an imbecile in business, or on the road to bankruptcy, or a thief.
Wow, strong words.
Yeah. He argued the financial and ethical parts have to be unified. You can't sort of partition your integrity, be principled at home but shady in the office. That fracture eventually undermines everything. Your credibility just evaporates.
Okay, so if living by principle is so effective, builds trust, leads to success, why is it so incredibly difficult for so many of us? Why do we keep chasing the external stuff, the secondary greatness?
Ugh, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And a big part of the answer seems to be vulnerability. Living by principle requires real vulnerability, and our culture often rewards the appearance of control, which breeds shame.
That sounds like Brene Brown's territory.
Exactly. Her work is so crucial here. She talks about this intense, pervasive pressure we all feel. Look perfect, do perfect, be perfect.
Yeah, the perfection trap.
And anything less than that impossible standard, it triggers deep feelings of shame. So we chase secondary greatness, the titles, the accomplishments, the image partly as a shield, a way to hide our vulnerability.
We build these elaborate defenses, these high-maintenance facades of competence and being totally in control. But they're inherently fragile, aren't they?
Incredibly fragile and easily threatened, which leads to another toxic pattern, projection and judgment.
How so?
Brown points out this really painful irony. We often judge other people most harshly in the very areas where we feel most vulnerable to shame ourselves. Yeah. It's like we use their perceived flaws as a launching pad, she says, to temporarily feel better about ourselves, to push away our own sense of inadequacy.
So focusing externally, judging, comparing, seeking validation, it actually keeps us stuck.
Deeply self-sabotaging. It prevents the necessary internal work, the foundational work required for primary greatness. It traps us in this endless cycle of comparing ourselves to others instead of building our own solid core.
Okay, so let's say you've done some of that hard internal work. You're building that core integrity, that primary greatness. How does that translate into actual action, especially in, say, leading an organization?
This is where the difference becomes really stark, the difference between having that principle-driven core and just reacting to whatever comes along. It's often the difference between sustained momentum and, well, total collapse.
Right.
And this connected directly to James Collins's work on what makes companies endure. He talks about this pattern in companies that fail to achieve lasting success. He calls it the doom loop.
The doom loop sounds ominous. What is it?
It's characterized by this constant, frantic lurching back and forth. They change leaders constantly. They restructure every couple of years.
Chasing the next big thing.
Exactly. Launching tons of new initiatives all at once, often abandoning a strategy before it even has a chance to show results. They're basically just reacting to external pressures, what competitors are doing, the latest quarterly numbers.
Instead of acting from some kind of internal compass.
Precisely. There's no defined internal commitment steering the ship. They're trying to skip the hard part.
Trying to get the breakthrough without the buildup.
You got it. They want that instant success without the slow, often grueling foundational work.
So what's the alternative? How do successful transformations happen?
The alternative Collins describes is the flywheel concept.
Right.
Sustainable transformations, the ones that really stick, they aren't sudden big bangs. They're organic,
Ah,
cumulative.
but pushing something really heavy.
Exactly like that.
Yeah.
Imagine a giant, heavy flywheel. Getting it started takes immense, persistent effort, just pushing and pushing.
Right, hard work.
Step one is that consistent push in a single direction. Then, step two, that consistency, even when the results seem tiny at first, starts to build a little bit of momentum.
Okay, just starting to turn.
Then step three, that momentum begins to attract more resources. Maybe people get excited, resistance drops a bit. And step four, that's the breakthrough point when the system gets so energized that the flywheel starts spinning almost under its own power.
And it requires.
That absolutely requires unwavering consistency and clear direction, which is impossible, really, without a clear, unchanging core principle driving it all. That's the primary greatness of the organization. It's why.
Without that clear why, every little gust of wind from the outside just pushes the company off course.
It creates what you could call institutional schizophrenia. The organization just can't maintain coherence. It's pulled in too many directions.
Do we have an example of a company that really lived this, that stuck to its why even when things got tough?
We do. A really powerful one is Nucor, the steel company, especially how they handled the brutal recession back in 1982. It shows how they lived their organizational why.
Okay, tell us about Nucor. What was their core principle and what did they do during that recession?
Nucor's core principle was fundamentally about shared destiny, shared risk, shared reward, and minimizing the sort of class distinctions you often see in big companies.
Okay.
So when times were good, everybody shared in the prosperity. But when the '82 recession hammered the steel industry, they didn't do the typical thing, which was massive layoffs.
What do they do instead?
They shared the sacrifice. But critically, they shared it proportionally, starting from the top. Worker pay went down about 25%, which is a serious hit, no question.
Yeah, that's tough.
But officer pay went down 60%, and the CEO, his pay dropped by a whopping 75%.
Wow. So the leadership wasn't just asking others to sacrifice, they were taking the biggest hit themselves.
Massively. It demonstrated their commitment to that principle far more powerfully than any, mission statement plaque on the wall ever could.
Actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely. And they actively fought against status symbols, too. For instance, in their factories, everyone, CEO visiting, managers, floor workers, everyone wore the exact same color hard hat.
Really? No special colors for managers?
Nope. Apparently, some foremen complained, felt they were losing status. Nucor's response was basically, your authority comes from your leadership, from the respect you earn, not your hat color. If you need those external symbols, maybe Nucor isn't the right fit for you.
That's a strong message about culture.
It reinforced that unified principle, that collective why, during immense pressure, and it allowed them to keep their workforce intact and bounce back incredibly quickly when the economy turned around.
Okay, so that brings it back to the personal level. If that kind of consistency, driven by a core principle, is so vital, how do we figure out our own fundamental purpose? It has to be deeper than just, say, getting a promotion.
It absolutely has to be deeper, and it requires some serious introspection. This is what Covey talks about in Habit 2. Begin with the end in mind.
Right, thinking about your legacy.
Exactly. And finding your personal mission statement isn't like just inventing something cool or trendy that sounds good. It's something you have to detect. You have to uncover it.
Detect, not invent.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's about recognizing your unique contribution, your talents, and aligning them with what Covey calls correct principles, these universal, timeless truths about human effectiveness and interaction, like fairness, integrity, honesty, human dignity.
And what's the risk if we miss that? If we center our lives on something else?
The danger is centering your life on something external, something fundamentally unstable that offers only a false sense of security.
Like what?
Well, think about it. If your whole sense of self, your security, is centered on your work, what happens if you lose your job?
Devastation.
Right, or possessions. They can be lost or stolen. Pleasure, it's fleeting by nature. Even centering solely on family, as important as it is, can be precarious because family dynamics change, people are lost. If the external center gets disturbed, your whole world shakes.
It leaves you vulnerable. Deeply vulnerable. Covey uses this really striking metaphor. He says, the person trapped in external centering, maybe even self-centeredness, is like the Dead Sea.
The Dead Sea, how so?
It constantly takes things in, water flows in, bringing minerals, resources, recognition maybe, but nothing flows out. And because it only accepts and never gives, it becomes stagnant, lifeless.
Ah, I see.
True security, genuine guidance, wisdom, real power. They have to flow from a solid, unchanging, principle-centered core. That kind of core is always generative. It gives back.
This idea of aligning what we want personally with some kind of universal good feels really ancient, doesn't it? I'm thinking to the Greeks here.
Oh, absolutely. There's a direct line. You see it clearly in figures like Socrates and Aristotle. They were obsessed with aligning human action, not just with being effective, but with being inherently good.
How do they frame it?
Well, Aristotle observed, pretty pragmatically, that every action we choose to take, we do it for the sake of some apparent good or pleasure. We don't deliberately choose what we think is bad for us. The motivation feels positive, even if the choice ends up being destructive.
We think it's going to benefit us somehow.
Right. And Socrates takes that and really digs into the morality, especially in Plato's dialogue, The Gorgias. He argues that when people do wrong, it's fundamentally out of ignorance. Ignorance of what is truly right and genuinely good for their own soul.
So, the ambitious tyrant chasing power and wealth by hurting others. Socrates would say they're not being clever, they're actually being profoundly ignorant about their own true self-interest.
Exactly. They're radically mistaken about what truly benefits them at the deepest level, the health of their soul. Socrates frames the whole purpose, the foundational why of the city-state, as the ultimate good of its citizens.
So a leader's job is to aim for that collective good.
A true leader, yes. If they just chase personal gain, wealth, power for themselves, they're missing the entire point of their role and their duty. And worse, they're inflicting the greatest possible harm on themselves.
Prejudice.
The badness, the corruption of their own soul. Socrates makes this absolutely stunning claim. The worst thing that can happen to a person isn't suffering injustice from someone else.
No. What is it then?
It's doing wrong yourself and getting away with it, going unpunished.
Wow. Why is going unpunished the worst evil? That seems counterintuitive.
Because in his philosophical view, punishment is like the painful medicine that can cure the sickness of the soul. It's the chance to learn, to correct, to realign your character with that primary greatness.
Ah, okay. It's restorative, even if it hurts.
Oh, exactly. So if that ethical foundation, the personal or organizational why, is corrupt, any power or success you build on top of it is ultimately meaningless, volatile, and harmful to your own core. This deep alignment with universal principles, that's the ultimate foundation that has to come before any truly successful action, whether you're running a business or governing a state.
Okay, so if this foundational why is rooted in these deep, almost eternal principles of character and goodness, that internal structure must be incredibly powerful, right? Like a shield against all the chaos the world throws at us. How does having that purpose actually protect us from failure, from suffering?
It grants us something profound. It connects to what Viktor Frankl identified, really drawing on centuries of Stoic wisdom before him. He called it the last of the human freedoms.
The last freedom.
Yes, think about it. External forces, war, economic collapse, betrayal, illness, loss, they can take almost everything away from you. Your job, your health, your possessions, even your physical liberty. But the one thing they absolutely cannot take away is your freedom to choose your response to those circumstances, your attitude, the meaning you assign to it.
That inner space of choice.
Exactly, that power of will, our internal ability to choose meaning in how we react, it can't be touched by the outside world. It's the ultimate, final trump card we always hold.
That's a really critical distinction, isn't it? It separates real internal power from just trying to force things externally. It's not about controlling the outcome, but controlling your internal state, your paradigm.
Precisely. And this leads us straight into the Stoic understanding of true will. It's often not what we picture. It's frequently quiet. It's marked by humility, incredible resilience, and flexibility. The ability to adapt to how you do things while holding fast to the why.
So it's not loud and aggressive.
Often the opposite. The Stoics saw that kind of loud, brittle aggression, what might look like ambition as often just weakness in disguise, bluster covering insecurity. When the external measures of success get stripped away, the titles, the money, the applause, the integrity of your will, your character is all that's left.
Is there a good historical example of someone embodying this?
Oh, definitely. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, provides a brilliant one in his observation of the famous Roman general Scipio Africanus.
Scipio, the one who defeated Hannibal.
That's the one. But Seneca reflects on Scipio after his peak. He argues that Scipio's moderation, his sense of duty, his quiet dignity were actually more admirable after he was forced into withdrawal and exile from Rome than they were during his greatest military triumphs.
More admirable in exile. Why?
Because when he had all the external validation, the parades, the titles, the secondary greatness demonstrating virtue was, you could say, easier, expected even.
Yep.
But when he was stripped of all that, living in exile, away from his country, he still maintained his character. He showed his internal foundation, his primary greatness, wasn't dependent on his circumstances. It mattered more than the external success or failure. He chose duty and principle even when it cost him basically everything the world values.
His core held firm. Okay, so if we accept this link, this connection between unwavering internal principles and often eventual external achievement, then success starts to look less like random chance.
Exactly. It stops looking arbitrary.
It starts looking more like a predictable outcome of consistent, principle-centered action.
That's the core idea you find in thinkers like Earl Nightingale or Tony Robbins. They essentially argue that success isn't an accident. It follows patterns. Predictable, replicable patterns of action, habit, and crucially, belief systems.
Like Disraeli's quote.
Precisely. Disraeli's famous line, "Man is not the creature of circumstances. Circumstances are the creatures of men." And the idea that a human being with a settled purpose must accomplish it. He believed nothing could ultimately resist a will that was so committed it would, quote, stake even existence for its fulfillment.
So the power comes from the focus, the singularity and the intensity of that settled purpose. If you're truly committed to one core principle, it just naturally organizes everything else you do.
It has to, but there's a crucial psychological catch identified brilliantly by William James.
Okay, what's the catch?
James agreed, essentially saying, if you only care enough for a result, you will almost certainly ascertain it. Powerful statement.
Yeah.
But he adds this huge caveat that cuts right to the core of what we're discussing. He says, you have to really wish for that primary outcome. And here's the key part. And not wish at the same time 100 other incompatible things just as strongly.
So if you wish for, say, building a truly great ethical company, but you simultaneously wish just as strongly for an easy life, avoiding conflict, maximizing short-term profit, your will is fractured.
Exactly. It's diffused. Your why isn't settled or exclusive. Your efforts become inconsistent. You end up in your own personal doom loop, never pushing that flywheel consistently in one direction.
You're pulled apart internally.
Right. If you're internally fractured, maybe chasing secondary status symbols while only paying lip service to primary principles, your actions can't be consistent. And therefore, any positive outcome is likely to be accidental, temporary at best.
And that leads to a final, maybe cautionary point.
Yeah.
It's easy to get carried away by success when it does come, isn't it? To forget the foundation.
Oh, absolutely. It's the timeless warning against hubris. There's a powerful lesson in the myth of Icarus.
Flying too close to the sun.
Right. He was flying on wings, his father, Daedalus, masterfully crafted. But he got caught up in the exhilaration, flew too high, ignored the warnings, and started thinking he was flying purely on his own merit.
Forgetting the system, the principles that allowed him to fly in the first place.
Exactly. He forgot the wax would melt. The crucial lesson there is never, ever forget that whatever wings you have, whatever success you achieve, they were likely enabled by some greater guiding principle, some system, some foundational why, maybe even help from others. Forgetting that foundation, getting intoxicated by secondary greatness, that's often the fastest way back down to earth, often catastrophically.
So that grounding, that humility, remembering the why, that constant commitment back to the core principle, that's what protects you. It ensures longevity beyond just a fleeting moment of success.
Yeah.
Hashtag stat check outro.
Wow, okay, this deep dive has really taken us on a journey, hasn't it? From modern business dynamics all the way back to the core ethics of ancient Greece. But it all circles back.
It really does.
We've traced the source of real influence, lasting success, genuine stability, and the core lessons seem synthesized across every single source we looked at.
If you truly want that profound influence, that success that endures, that stability, you absolutely have to start by establishing primary greatness. That core set of unwavering principles has to come before you get obsessed with the methods, the techniques, the results.
Because if you don't have that clear, principle-centered purpose, your why, your actions just can't be consistent. You'll inevitably find yourself or your organization trapped in that doom loop we talked about.
Reacting instead of acting.
Exactly. That constant focus on the external, chasing recognition, comparing yourself, it's ultimately self-defeating because it makes you ignore the only things you truly fundamentally can control. Your internal paradigm, your character, your ethical foundation.
And doing that foundational work, building that character,
Yeah.
it radically transforms the what you achieve and the how you achieve it. It's like the difference between, I don't know, a building thrown up quickly for profit that
Yeah.
might crumble in 50 years
Yeah.
and one built meticulously on bedrock, designed according to sound principles, that stands for centuries.
Beautifully put. And that leaves us with, I think, a really necessary, maybe provocative thought to end on. Something for you, the listener, to really chew on.
Okay, let's hear it.
We heard from Russell Conwell that in his view, honesty was the very foundation of great wealth, that trust derived from character is a powerful economic engine.
Right, the 98%.
And then we heard Socrates argue, quite dramatically, that the greatest possible evil isn't suffering injustice but doing wrong and getting away with it, making the health of our soul, our ethical core, the most important thing.
So connecting those two.
If long-term success, even wealth, is fundamentally rooted in trustworthy character, and if the failure of that character is the worst personal tragedy imaginable,
Then the question becomes,
how much time and conscious effort do we actually spend actively defining, refining, and strengthening the moral and ethical why that drives our daily lives, compared to how much time we spend just defining the what we want to achieve, the goals, the targets, the outcomes?
that's the real foundational work, isn't it? The work that determines whether what we build truly lasts.
That feels like the choice. That's the work.